All right, let's talk about the Siege of Yorktown. This is the one, the single battle that basically ended the American Revolutionary War. Now, it wasn't the start of the war, not by a long shot, and it wasn't even the deadliest fight. But this was the knockout punch. This was the moment that took American independence from a long-shot dream and turned it into an inevitable reality. And you don't have to take my word for how huge this was. Just look at this quote. "Oh God, it's all over." That's not some random soldier talking. That's the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Lord North. That's the reaction from the very top. It was a gut punch that told him, in that single moment, that the game was up. So that brings us to the big question, right? How on earth did this happen? You've got the world's most powerful army, the British Empire, surrendering to a fledgling rebellion. An army that, let's be honest, was often underfed, underpaid, and barely holding it together. The answer? Well, it's a wild story of brilliant strategy, a little bit of desperation, and one incredible high-stakes gamble. To really get how they pulled this off, we have to zoom in on the moment of surrender itself. So let's set the scene. It's October 19th, 1781. Okay, look at this number, 7,685. That's how many British and German soldiers laid down their arms at Yorktown. To put that into perspective for you, that was roughly a quarter of all British troops in North America at the time. This wasn't just a lost battle. This was an entire army being wiped off the board. An absolutely catastrophic, unrecoverable loss. So how did the Continental Army and their French allies manage to trap a force that big? Well, it all started with a huge gamble, a decision to throw out their original plan and make a massive, risky march south. And you have to appreciate just how fast this all went down. I mean, in early July, the entire plan is to attack New York City. Then, boom, on August 14th, a single letter from a French admiral arrives, and it changes everything. Just 5 days later, 7,000 men are on the move. Moving an army that size, that fast back then, it was an unbelievable feat, all done in total secrecy. So you had two plans on the table. Plan A was the safe bet, attack New York. Washington actually preferred this one. I mean, they had a 3-to-1 advantage in numbers there. But Plan B, that was the French General Rochambeau's idea. He saw a chance for a bigger prize, to trap General Cornwallis's whole army down in Virginia. It was way riskier, though. Everything, and I mean everything, hinged on the French Navy showing up at the exact right time. And you know what? They went with the gamble. Okay, so how do you march thousands of troops hundreds of miles without the main British army in New York finding out and stopping you? Deception. A brilliant campaign of it. They created fake battle plans, sent fake messages, all designed to convince the British general in New York, Henry Clinton, that an attack on his city was just around the corner. And Clinton, he bought it, hook, line, and sinker. All right, so the army is secretly marching south. But that's only half the story. The entire plan was worthless without one key element, control of the sea. And this is where the French Navy becomes the absolute hero of the story. It all played out like a textbook trap. First, French Admiral de Grasse shows up with a massive fleet, 28 warships, and seals off the entrance to the Chesapeake Bay. He basically put a cork in the bottle. Then, when the British rescue fleet finally arrives, de Grasse sails out, fights them, and wins. And that was the ballgame. The second the British ships sailed away, Cornwallis was stranded. No supplies, no reinforcements, and no escape by sea. The trap was officially set. So, with the back door slammed shut by the French Navy, the focus now shifts to land. It's time for the siege to begin. This is classic, grinding 18th century warfare, literally digging in and tightening the noose, one shovelful of dirt at a time. So by the end of September, the picture looks like this. You've got almost 20,000 Allied troops surrounding about 9,000 British and German soldiers. And right at the start, Cornwallis makes a huge mistake. He was hoping a rescue fleet was still on its way, so he abandoned his outer defenses to tighten his lines. Big mistake. The Allies just walked right in, took over those empty fortifications, and started digging their own siege lines. Then, on October 9th, the real fireworks began. The Allied cannons open up. We're talking a massive, non-stop bombardment, day and night. The ground would have been shaking constantly. The story goes that George Washington himself fired the first American cannon. And this artillery just starts relentlessly tearing the British defenses to pieces. Now, To finish the job, the Allies needed to get even closer. They had to dig a second trench, right up in the face of the British. But there was a problem. Two small but very strong British forts, they were called redoubts, were in the way. Redoubts 9 and 10, and they absolutely had to be taken. So how do you take these forts? Washington's plan was unbelievably bold. He ordered a nighttime assault. And to make sure it was a total surprise, no accidental gunshots giving them away, he gave a chilling order. Muskets were to be unloaded. This attack was going to be with bayonets only, just cold steel. So here's how it went down on the night of October 14th. It was a coordinated, two-pronged attack. The French regulars went after Redoubt 9. At the exact same time, 400 American soldiers, led by none other than a very eager Alexander Hamilton, charged Redoubt 10. And it worked. Both assaults were incredibly fast, violent, and totally successful. The final British defenses were broken. With his defenses in ruins, Cornwallis knows it's over. He makes one last desperate Hail Mary play. He tries to sneak his army out in the middle of the night using small boats to get across the York River. But then the weather turns. A sudden, violent storm blows in, scattering the boats and making escape impossible. It was like nature itself said no. His last hope was literally washed away. So, no escape, no hope of rescue. The end was here, and what happened next, the surrender, would have consequences that truly did turn the world upside down. Even the surrender itself was packed with drama. It starts on October 17th, when a lone British drummer boy appears on the walls signaling for a truce. But then Cornwallis claims he's sick, a pretty convenient illness, and sends his second-in-command to do the dirty work. Washington, remembering how the Americans were disrespected at the surrender of Charleston, returns the favor. He denies the British the honors of war, forcing them to march out with their flags bundled up and hidden. And here's the part that's become a famous legend. We're not 100% sure it actually happened, but the story goes that as the British Army marched out to surrender, their band played a song called "The World Turned Upside Down." Honestly, even if it didn't happen, it should have. No phrase could have been more perfect for that moment. So let's look at the final numbers. The casualties, the killed and wounded, were pretty low for a major siege. But that's not the real story here. The real story is that bottom line. Allied captured, 0. British and German captured nearly 8,000. The trap had closed perfectly. It was a complete and total victory. And this is maybe the most important takeaway. Militarily, the British Empire was still incredibly powerful. But politically, this loss was a backbreaker. It shattered the will of the government back in London to keep pouring money and soldiers into the American war. Support for it just evaporated. It was too expensive, and now it looked unwinnable. So the surrender at Yorktown leads directly to peace talks in Paris. 2 years later, those talks ended with the Treaty of Paris, which officially recognized the United States of America as a new, independent nation. This victory is what made that treaty happen. So we end up right back where we started. A scrappy army, with the critical help of a powerful ally, defeated a global empire. It was a victory made possible only by a risky gamble and an international alliance that clicked at just the right moment. It really makes you think, doesn't it? What does this pivotal moment in history teach us about what's possible when different groups set aside their own plans to work toward one common goal?